here with the June astrology forecast. I want to point out that I am coming to you from a hotel room in the general Buffalo, New York area. It's very nice in here. The lighting, however, is a little bit creepy and it looks like everything is kind of greenish. It's not really, but that's the way it seems to be looking when I record. So don't worry about me, I'm fine. It's just a lighting effect. A little quick reminder that the monthly forecast is not what's happening for you. It's not even what's happening for any of us. It's the overall mood. It's the overall vibe. Some of the things, when you go through periods where you're a little bit more vulnerable in relationship, in career, or something like that, you're likely to find that this stuff really pops up strongly for you. But in general, it's the weather, it's what's going on out there in the collective, what you're likely to encounter, the types of things that are coming up for people in general. So this isn't a personalized consultation for you. As good as it is, as helpful as it is, it's still not a personalized type of consultation. This is just an overall overview of the weather. Now, when we start off June, what do we find? We find that we begin with a lot of helpful aspects that are great for relationships and probably for finances too, right at the very beginning of June, on the 1st, 2nd, right into the 3rd or so. Things are going pretty good. It's a great time to take advantage of, and if you're having a good time and so on, make sure that you do. We still have some of the full moon energy from the week lingering around. It should make for a good Friday night. It should make for a good Saturday night. By the time we get to around June 5th, however, Venus opposes Pluto, and relationships that have been under strain may really find the strain building up. It could be a tough time in relationships for a lot of us. That is likely to be something that sort of simmers until mid-month, right around June 14th or so, when Venus opposes Uranus. That might be the kind of pop time there. Did I say Venus opposes? When Venus squares Uranus, that might be the pop time. So, but do keep in mind that right around the 5th, you may have had a really good weekend and then find that Monday and Tuesday winds up being a little bit more of a stress. It's easy to gloss over stuff at the beginning of the month, the first couple of days, but by the time we get to the 5th, that's just not very deep into the month, it's hard to gloss over stuff in relationships, and that continues all the way through mid-month, and really, to tell you the truth, with Venus opposite Mars on the 21st, I think that that's something that is liable to continue sort of throughout the month. So get off to a good start, make the most of it, hopefully lay a good foundation and groundwork, because once we get going with things, if you haven't really laid a solid foundation, you're liable to be finding things getting a little tense. Sometimes things get tense in a relationship. What are you going to do? Starting around the same time, the 5th or 6th of the month, we enter this Neptunian period that lasts till about the 20th. Now, Neptunian periods are sort of hard to define by definition. They're very foggy. Our judgment is likely to be off about things. We're liable to sort of make mountains out of molehills. We could exaggerate the importance of something. We could fail to see the importance of something. It's a little bit like sort of going through, like in a fog. Neptunian periods, and we're looking at about 2 weeks, 15 days or so of Neptunian period. It's a little bit like, you had a couple of gin and tonics last night, and you wake up at 3 in the morning, and you're sort of trying to find your way around. It's not the clearest sort of energy. We're not going to really find things sort of snapping out of it until we get to the full moon or on the 26th. Highlight days would be the 5th and 6th of June. Mercury is square to Neptune, and then the Sun is square to Neptune. Let me describe it like this. Snake oil can be sold very easily. This is a time when, we don't even necessarily need to lie. We don't even necessarily need to lie, because just presenting the facts as we see them, as we'd like them to be, as we believe they are, seems to be good enough. We don't really need to do any fact checking. It's a very poor time for things like interviews and major decisions. It's a very poor time to buy a major purchase type of thing, especially a car. But it's kind of a poor time to purchase anything, because you're really not quite sure what it is you're getting. The story could sound good, but what do you really wind up with? That's liable to be very prominent all the way through the the 13th, not the 14th, the 13th through the 16th. Now, Neptune stations on the 16th. Neptune actually stops to go retrograde on the 16th. This is, again, a time when things are just very unclear, very foggy. Now, so what do you do during these times? I mean, we're talking about June 5th to, I said the 20th, and that's a pretty good guess. Um, it's not great for practical decisions. That would actually influence some of those relationship things. If we're getting a little keyed up and freaked out about relationship stuff or financial stuff, and we feel impelled to act, we could be distorting things a little bit because of Neptune. We could be making mountains out of molehills in the area of relationship or finances. But really could be anything. Really could be anything. So I think that a good thing to do is to kind of follow Neptune's other path. And I don't want to say escape, but creativity. If things are going well, you know, then it could be like a nice romantic time. It could be a good time to get sort of lost in a fantasy, yourself, with somebody else. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying it's a good time for that sort of imagination and fantasy. So right around mid-month, early to mid-month, around the 5th to the 20th, you know, duck out on things. It'd be a great time for a spiritual retreat if you want to know the truth. Here's another thing. We may revisit issues from around November, early November, early to mid-November. And if you had something around that time where you got excited, it seemed like a possibility, and it just sort of went nowhere, well, we're coming back maybe to revisit that. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure it's going to go anywhere this time around either. It may not. But you may find that things that you thought you had sort of left aside and said, well, we're not going to do anything with that. It may turn out that they actually come back to you as something that you again start to think about infusing a little bit of energy into. When we get to the end of the month, we have the full moon in Capricorn. Now, full moon in Capricorn every year is a little bit of a oxymoron. You know, the full moons are lunacy. Full moons, you know, everything is keyed up and emotional. And this full moon is in the sign of Capricorn, which is a little bit more constrained. And that's good. So it's liable to be a time when things get a little out of hand at work, particularly. This full moon is very, very closely linked to the planet Saturn in Capricorn, just a couple of degrees away. And the feel that you get with it is kind of like authority, restrictions, limitations, and you're sort of seeing these. You're sort of seeing the limitations that are on you. And that is something that can be a little bit difficult to deal with, you know, quite honestly. It's not the easiest thing to deal with sometimes, to feel that you're kind of pushed into a corner. But you see your limitations. And seeing your limitations is the first step to finding a way to get past your limitations. So, I mean, you know, the time around the full moon, it could be a lot of fun. Reserved fun. I think formal occasions right around the end of the month, you know, June weddings and things like that, should go really, really well. You know, I'm less convinced that, you know, more informal, wild, crazy parties and that sort of thing is going to really take off around the full moon. That's fine, because we have full moon next month in Aquarius. It should be a lot of fun. The sun will be in Leo, so we're not losing anything. One more thing to point out is going back again to June 13th. I know we're getting a little bit lost there in the Neptunian period. See, that's how it happens. That we will, on around the 13th or so, we're going to have a new moon in Gemini. And that new moon in Gemini is a good time to sort of set your intentions around making your everyday life better. That full moon at the end of the month. It does coincide with Mars stationing to retrograde on the 26th. Let's talk a little bit about Mars retrograde. Mars retrograde periods, first of all, you don't have to worry about all the things that you worry about with Mercury retrograde. And you can't expect the same things that you get with Venus retrograde. It's Mars retrograde. Story on Mars retrograde, it's typically considered not to be the best time to start a new job, unless you're going back to a place you used to work before, it's not a great time to take up new projects in general. The idea is that our energy, our assertiveness is kind of lacking. Associated with that, it is also considered to be sort of a poor time to begin a sexual relationship. See what happens. Mars is going to be retrograde until the end of August. I mean, it's summertime. You got to make allowances. But often, what happens with every retrograde planet. You very much want the thing that the planet signifies, right? So when Venus is retrograde, it's not a great time to begin a relationship, but you want it. When Mercury is retrograde, it's not a great time for technical stuff and cars, and it's not great for buying software, but you kind of want it. When Mars is retrograde, it's not a great time to begin a new sexual relationship, but you kind of want it. So, see what happens. Let's prove the astrologers wrong on this one. The other thing that is not great to do with Mars retrograde is to begin legal actions. It's not a good time to begin a legal action. So it's if you have to go back to something that has been dragging on for a while, you might actually get it resolved with Mars retrograde, but it's not a good time to initiate something new. So sort of stay away from filing papers this summer. All right, on that peculiar note on lawsuits and things like that, I leave you to a good June. I will visit you next time from a less green environment, except in the sense of being environmentally sound. I will visit you from my home. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.